What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Dustin Poirier breaks silence on UFC negotiations. Recently, the MMA community was distraught by news indicating that Dustin Poirier's upcoming UFC 299 fight with Benoit Saint-Denis had been called off after a post from the former interim lightweight champ on social media. Shortly after, Poirier then retracted his comments, indicating that there was a miscommunication and the fight with Saint-Denis was on for the March event. At the same time, he also explained that he jumped the gun after being unable to get a hold of his manager, and the whole situation was simply a big misunderstanding. During a recent appearance on the MMA Hour, Poirier opened up on the situation.
I don't want to dive too deep into it. There was some miscommunication. Not everybody was on the same page, and I couldn't get a hold of somebody, and things got a little bit confusing for me, and I was waiting to hear something. But it is what it is. Fight's on.
As Poirier also explained, when it came to UFC 300, despite talk of a fourth bout between he and Conor McGregor among fans, the fight was never offered to him. In addition, despite hope among the MMA community that he and Nate Diaz could potentially square off on the massive card, talks never wound up progressing. With Saint-Denis eager to pick up the biggest victory of his career, and Poirier eager to prove that he still has what it takes to be one of the best lightweights in the world, the stakes couldn't be higher. Next up, let's take a look at another UFC 300 fight is in jeopardy of being cancelled. UFC CEO Dana White has come under fire recently for what many believe to be a case of putting the horse before the cart. According to Ariel Helwani, the Dustin Poirier vs. Benoit Saint-Denis fight at UFC 299 and the UFC Fight Night Atlantic City main event between Sean Brady and Vicente Luque, which has since been called off, are two examples of White announcing fights that were never officially signed by both fighters. During a recent episode of the MMA Hour, Helwani also indicated that he's heard there's another fight on the UFC 300 card that has yet to be finalized, but has already been announced. However, he didn't give specifics.
I could tell you there's another fight on 300. One of the particulars has not agreed to yet. I'm not going to say which fight it is, and I'll tell you it's probably not a main card fight, but there's another fight on that card that was put out before one of the fighters agreed to, and as of this second, they have not agreed to it yet.
The practice of announcing fights before they are official on both sides is something that the UFC has been accused of doing for some time now. As Helwani indicated, after the latest situation with Dustin Poirier and Benoit Saint-Denis, a number of other fighters and managers indicated that they too have experience with the UFC announcing fights before they're finalized. With Helwani teasing a fight potentially falling off UFC 300, it'll be interesting to see what comes of the situation. Next up, let's take a look at Sean O'Malley reacts to Joe Rogan comments. As the UFC prepares to go to trial in April for the Lee v. Zuffa antitrust lawsuit, the MMA community has continued to weigh in on the situation, as well as question what the outcome could have on the future of the MMA landscape as we know it. The trial could potentially see the UFC forced to pay out upwards of $1 billion to former fighters who fought for the promotion between 2010 and 2017, after the certification of the class action lawsuit against the promotion for anti-competitive business practices. Recently, as longtime commentator Joe Rogan indicated, he believes that going forward, the UFC should come up with a list of approved sponsors and then allow the sponsors to decide which fighters on the roster they want to enter into deals with. During a recent episode of the Timbo Sugar Show, bantamweight champion Sugar Sean O'Malley weighed in.
Joe said get a bunch of sponsors approved to put logo on the fighter shorts, then give them the list of athletes to see who they sponsor. I don't think that works because you're going to have the top guys getting all the sponsorship money and then the lower guys not getting any of it because they're not going to, the top guys aren't going to accept what they're going to be like, here, we'll give you $10,000. Like a lower guy would be jacked to get that, but the higher ups who they want to sponsor be like, what? No, that's not worth it. Yeah. So I don't think that's the right answer. I don't know. I don't have the right answer, but I don't think that would work.
It's important to note that the Johnson v. Zuffa suit, which would cover fighters from June 30th, 2017 onward, is currently working its way through the courts, with hope of being certified and following the same path as the Lee v. Zuffa suit. Now, let's shift gears and take a look at Paddy Pimblett called out in interview. After his big win over Drew Dober this past weekend at the Apex, Renato Moicano took to social media, indicating that he would like to see Dober fight against streaking Scouser Paddy Pimblett after the baddie's recent win over Tony Ferguson last year. As he wrote, "I want to see Drew Dober fighting Paddy Pimblett next. Let's see how tough is this kid." In a response on Instagram, Pimblett wrote, "Why would I fight Dober when I could smoke you much easier?" Moicano then responded, writing, "Paddy is calling me out. I'd fight you any day of the week. In a recent appearance on the MMA Hour, Moicano was asked about the call-out, with the fan favorite explaining his reasoning behind his decision.
Because that's not the way they work. UFC is protecting him. How I gonna call him? This is chess, not checkers.
I love it. I love it. Okay.
This is chess, not checkers. If I go over there and I'm giving my strategy to you now, I'm saying,
yeah.
No, now everybody knows. But if I go over there and I say, hey, Paddy Pimblett, I'm gonna beat you up. Everybody does that. So I said, okay, I'm gonna make him get the bait, right?
With Pimblett previously indicating that his next fight will likely be over the summer, a bout between the two could line up pretty perfectly. Next, let's take a look at UFC Fight Updates. Heading into this weekend's upcoming Hermansson vs. Pyfer card at the Apex, 2 new fights have been added to the UFC Vegas 87 card on March 2nd. First up, we have a clash between middleweights Christian Leroy Duncan and Claudio Ribeiro, which will see Duncan look to pick up his second straight win after suffering the first loss of his pro career to Armen Petrosyan back in June. On the flip side, Ribeiro will be looking to bounce back after a loss to Roman Kopylov at UFC 291. Next up, we have a flyweight bout between Matt Schnell and Steve Erceg, which will see Schnell look to make a successful return after nearly a year-and-a-half long hiatus that most recently saw him finished by Mateus Nicolau, while on the flip side, Erceg will be looking to build on a massive winning streak going back to 2018 that has seen him go 2-0 since joining the UFC last year. Next, let's take a look at Max Holloway will beat Justin Gaethje at UFC 300. Many members of the MMA community have continued to question whether or not Max Holloway's chin will hold up against the power of Justin Gaethje when the two collide at UFC 300. Although Holloway's boxing and his pace has proven difficult for top-ranked fighters, and his legendary chin has been tested plenty of times in the past, he continues to sit as a betting underdog. During a recent appearance on the MMA Hour, Dustin Poirier, who has competed against Holloway twice in the past, weighed in on the fight, refuting the notion that Holloway is an undersized 155er while sharing a massive prediction.
I respect both guys. Both guys are great fighters. I think I would put money on Max, just him being the dog. I see a lot of people online saying that Max is going to be undersized and that. Man, Max is a big guy. You know, him and Gaethje probably walk around the same weight. You know, Max isn't a small guy. And the striking, the timing of Max, his range, his durability, it's a coin toss, but if I was betting, I would bet Max.
As Holloway explained last month, the difference between his upcoming fight with Gaethje and his last trip up to 155 in 2019 is that this time, he'll enter into the bout at the proper size to compete at lightweight. Next, let's take a look at Ilia Topuria CONFIDENT heading into Volkanovski FIGHT. Ilia Topuria believes that he represents the future of the 145-pound division. With an undefeated record through 14 professional fights, the 27-year-old is supremely confident heading into the biggest bout of his career at UFC 298. Although the betting odds for the fight are split right down the middle, Topuria has no doubts about whether he will get his hand raised against Alexander Volkanovski. As he explained on a recent episode of the MMA Hour,
Eric, it's inevitable. I'm going to win this fight. It's my destiny, you know. It always was my destiny. I was born as a fighter. I was born as a UFC world champion. I know my level. I know myself. And I have the capacity of analyze all my opponents. I know that I'm better than anyone in my division. Even in the next weight class, I'm better than everyone. And it's just a matter of time that I'm going to prove all of them time and time again wrong.
Heading into the event, Topuria also notably indicated during his MMA Hour appearance that he signed a new deal with the UFC at the end of 2023. According to the undefeated contender, a UFC event in Spain will happen in 2024, with hopes that it will take place at the Santiago Bernabeu Stadium in Spain, the home of Real Madrid. With a chance to usher in the next era of featherweights at UFC 298, it's clear that the stakes couldn't be higher for El Matador. The MMA community roasts Dana White over his new Super Bowl commercial with Bud Light. The commercial features Dana White, Post Malone, and Peyton Manning. Here's what the community had to say. Dana White has cameo in Bud Light's Super Bowl. Once again, the UFC telling fighters that the brand is the star, not you. Not impressed. They're always trying to break the will of the people because they're rich and they think they can. All these people about to get canceled. How quickly they change their tune when there's money on the line. F***ing sellout. You spent $7 million for the TV spot, plus the production cost, plus the cost to get Peyton Manning, Post Malone, and Dana White, and you reveal your commercial 5 days early? This does not make any sense. Colby Covington reveals sad news and confirms that in his recent fight with Leon Edwards, he actually broke his foot on Leon's elbow in the first round. Here's what Colby had to say.
Athlete, one of the best fighters of all time. So, I'm doing good. The result wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't my night, but, I broke my foot right away and couldn't plant or explode off it to use the wrestling and pressure I planned to use. I didn't want to disclose this information until I had the x-rays back home, but here they are. Here's the images.
Right, so we're looking at the images right now, and appreciate you supplying them. Talk us through this injury, man. How exactly did it happen? And did you know straight away that it was that bad?
Yeah, I knew straight away it was bad because I just, it was the first kick I threw. It landed right on his elbow. He was an orthodox, so I kind of got a little overzealous, and I wanted to rip a high kick to his orthodox side because I didn't know if he would be, defensively sound like he is from southpaw. So, the first kick I threw, a high kick, it was kind of like a middle kick, and it landed on his elbow. And haters will still find a way to hate on me for fighting 25 minutes on one leg while landing over 100 more strikes than Leon. But you know what? My haters are so broke, they can't even pay attention. So them.
Top comments. MMA really is a what have you done for me lately sport. I believe Volk's gonna have a y'all must have forgot moment. Whitaker always looks jacked. Random UFC fighter gets in shape to the point of showing visible abs. UFC media fans, OMG, he's the next Mr. Olympia. Robert literally looked like that on the scale against Duplessis. Everyone was saying how ripped he looked. No way you couldn't take him then and get a good angle and make him look even better. Make sure to leave a comment and you might get featured in our next video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss any MMA news. Check out our video from yesterday if you missed it. See you tomorrow.